do its thing. All right, I'm seeing indications that we are now live streaming. I'm going to count back down from 5, 4, 3. Hey, everybody, my co host, Jake Bernstein, is on vacation right now. So I'll have to kick off this episode myself. I know what to do. So, what we're going to talk about today on episode 191 of the Cyber Risk Management Podcast is law enforcement. Have you ever wondered how you can add law enforcement as a valuable resource to your cybersecurity program? We're going to explore that today. And I'm so pleased to tell you we're going to do that with a guy that I met earlier this year. We were on a panel together at the Imagination in Action conference, which is held on the MIT campus in Cambridge, which is right across the river from downtown Boston in Massachusetts. So with us today is Supervisory Special Agent Douglas Domin. He is with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Of course, that's known as the FBI. And he's currently leading the FBI's multi-state cyber task force, which is based in the Boston office. So Agent Domin, and I'll call you Doug as we go through, but welcome to the podcast. So glad to have you here as a guest. Would love for you to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Kip. Thanks for letting me come on here and speak with you today. As you mentioned, I'm with the FBI's Cyber Task Force. We work out of the Boston field office here. I've been an agent for over 20 years. I've been the supervisor for the past 5. And prior to my experience here at the FBI, I worked at a company called Sun Microsystems. You may have heard of them.
Yeah.
And I did, funny enough, I did incident response back then, Kip, which was a support role, not as much of a security role back then. Now IR is referring to essentially security response. But back then, I was a system support engineer at Sun Microsystems.
Wow. Somehow I think I missed that when I was doing a review of your background, but I think that's fascinating. I don't know how many people who sort of start their career working in systems and high tech actually transition to a career in, federal law enforcement. Do you run into other people with that kind of background?
I do. There's actually a lot of people that work cyber for the FBI who come from that world in technology and in tech previously. So I'm fortunate to work with, to be honest, some of the best I think in the world that do that kind of work. And now their focus is, instead of fixing systems or architecting systems, it's where do these threat actors find vulnerabilities? What are they exploiting? And then what elements of the crime do we need to meet to catch up to them and hold them accountable?
Right. I can't help but to mention the amazing book that I read a long, long time ago called The Cuckoo's Egg by Cliff Stoll, Catching the Wily Hacker. Did you ever read that book?
I absolutely did. I bring it up quite a bit, not only internally, but when I do presentations and outreach, because if I can just take a second, one of the early parts of the book is his discovery of something that he thinks might be a hacker, and he brings it to the FBI's attention. And the FBI says that it's only under $1 loss value, and we're not interested in taking that case.
I remember.
And it's something that we speak about quite a bit, because some of the elements of a computer intrusion, the unauthorized access of a computer intrusion, rely on a loss. They have to have a financial loss that's attributed to that intrusion to make it a federal crime. So while there are things we've evolved to and we've developed, I look back on that and I think it's not wrong. I just don't like the delivery in the book in the way that they responded to the author's detection.
But that was a paradigm shift, wasn't it, for law enforcement? I mean, they were right in the bleeding edge of things changing. So, I mean, I give the agents there a lot of grace, because I just don't think they understood. What do you think?
No, I mean, I couldn't speak for them. It was in, I think, 1986, possibly early 80s. But, that was around the time that the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act was enacted.
Yeah.
That was coming online. And even from then to now, what we consider to be a computer versus what was back then I don't think they would have understood how we operate and use computers nowadays.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think that's
certainly
right.
evolved. Yeah.
What's interesting about that book is it was published in 86. I just read it recently, like a few months ago, and I thought, well, okay, so the tech is totally different, but everything else is completely the same.
It
I mean,
is. It's just slowed down, and they kind of elongate the detection, and how he threat hunts is fascinating.
yeah.
And then uh, what I did is I found a C-SPAN testimony that was archived of Cliff Stoll talking about the book because it had become popular. And in that same hearing, the FBI director also testifies about FBI investigations at the time. I think this is now 1989.
Mhm.
And he says there's about five computer investigations in the Bureau at that time.
Wow.
And how far we've come to 2025 now
Yeah.
with what we have going.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, of course. But I just want to mention one more thing about Cliff Stoll's book is, in addition to encouraging people to read it, if you've not read it or if you haven't read it in a long time, just go get it. It's awesome. But in there, one of the people who makes an appearance is Jim Christie, who worked at the Air Force's investigative service. And I loved reading that book in part because I actually had working interactions with Jim Christie when I was on active duty in the Air Force. Did you happen to talk to him at all?
That's very cool. No, I've not interacted with any of those characters in the book.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask because you and I are kind of, sort of, maybe from the same era,
Sure.
So who else can I ask?
That's right. Well, I'm
Okay,
lucky when people know what Sun Microsystems does. So
yeah,
things change quick. Yeah.
yeah. Although it would be so hard to um, under or over appreciate the role that they played in the creation of the internet. I mean, it was a big wheel.
It's huge.
Um, okay, so in your current role, you're overseeing, I think you said, critical incident response, criminal investigations, and it includes things like ransomware, malware, social engineering, things like that. And your scope of operation would be kind of New England. Is that right?
Yeah. So each field office covers what they refer to as an AOR, an area of responsibility,
Mm,
and Boston covers Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island.
okay.
And
Okay.
so
Good.
and so we have the cyber task force in every field office. So if there are issues in that AOR that have to uh, or have encountered a unauthorized access of a computer intrusion or a computer device, they'd want to bring that to the task force and then let the cyber task force determine kind of what the next action might be as far as an investigation goes.
Okay, got it. Now, the internet is a strange beast because it kind of defies geography in so many ways. Now, I'm based in Seattle. I'm a CISO, but if I had an intrusion, in a data center in Virginia, how would I know which FBI office to call?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's not as you mentioned, I tell people that the internet geography looks much different than our physical geography
Yeah,
does, and uh, there are uh, there's going to be an FBI field office throughout the country and in a lot of the embassies around the world. The FBI has cyber investigators that are there to work with communities, and
hmm,
what we like to kind of have as our default is using the headquarters of an organization as our kind of pinpoint on where that field office should be located.
got it.
As we
That's
get in
helpful.
and evolve into the case, if it determines that a case would be open, we'll work with our prosecutor at DOJ to determine where that venue is for that case. So if you're operating in Seattle, you might have a server in Virginia that's been impacted. Well,
Right.
according to the legal standards, that wire that is impacted or that it's involved in the case will make a difference, and so that district might change. So the default, as I mentioned, try not to overthink it. Wherever your headquarters is,
Mhm.
that's the FBI office you want to be engaging with.
Perfect. And I saw a list of FBI offices. There are many of them around the United States. And I think if I just go to the FBI.gov website, I can quickly see them all and get a phone number and a name. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep. FBI.gov, there's 55 field offices, but we're also spread out in other satellite offices. We call them resident agencies
Hmm.
throughout the more rural areas. For
Okay.
instance, in Maine, we have one in Portland, Maine. So, if you call the main number that you find on FBI.gov, they'll route you to the right office to go to, and then you want to ask for the cyber task force.
Perfect, perfect. Now, one of the things that I realized as we were doing show prep, which I think is really important to mention, is that yes, you yourself, you work in law enforcement, but your context is very relevant to mine, right? So you're supporting private sector, critical infrastructure, right? So as a chief information security officer, this threat landscape that I'm staring into all the time is really the same one you're looking into. Is that right?
That's our goal. To be honest, Kip, we want to allocate resources according to what the community is seeing,
Hmm.
and we are operating in the physical world for that community to understand what our contacts and partners are experiencing, and what they're telling us is their biggest threats are the crimes that we want to investigate. We want to put those resources behind it.
Okay, okay. So community driven. I love that. Now let's talk like practicality here, okay? So I want to ask you a few questions about just like how can law enforcement, specifically the FBI, become a resource? So let's say I'm a member of a C-suite team. Nothing's in crisis at the moment. What's my first best step in order to learn how to work with the bureau?
So you mentioned going to find that field office and looking for or identifying as someone on that cyber task force. Calling us is always a great way to do it.
Okay.
Uh, a lot of the personnel that work cyber are encouraged to be out speaking with the public, engaging in different conferences, talking at different as in different communities, and we try to be as equitable as we can, with really focusing on what you had mentioned, the CISO role. We
Yeah.
want to learn about the threats that those CISOs are seeing,
Mm.
and in turn, we want to provide that engagement to make sure that those CISOs feel like they're being supported by the FBI's, you know, I wouldn't say casework, but really our intelligence that we're able to push out to the public sector. So
Okay.
definitely go to get back to your question, Kip. Get on FBI.gov and find that field office.
Hmm.
Um, you might get passed from one person to another until we find the right spot to you, but I think that's definitely the best way
Okay.
to go about it.
Now I got to tell you that one thing that I make up in my mind when I think about doing that, calling my local field office, is I'm like, they're not going to want to talk to me. They're so busy handling, reports of crime and conducting investigations. If I just call and say, "Hi, I'm Kip. I'm the CISO for, Acme, blah blah blah," I just sort of make up that like no one's going to have time to talk to me, and that's not really going to be a very welcome call. But that's not right, is it?
Not at all. Are we work. This is our job, right? To at the very least hear what the complaints are, so that we
Hmm.
can determine if that is a viable investigation that we can work. If there is a kind of a concern or a hesitancy to call us, IC3.gov is another great place where you can go. It's essentially an intake portal for cybercrime,
Hmm.
and you can put the indications or the indicators that you have detected a crime or you're the victim of a crime into that intake form, and that'll get routed to the appropriate field office. They don't action, and I don't action every single one of those IC3 reports,
Hmm.
but it's documented, and then it becomes a searchable database that other agents, frankly, around the world have access to in a real
Mm.
time basis. So if
Interesting.
we have my colleague that's working in the embassy in Tokyo, if they search an IP address that might have been submitted by someone in Boston, that will make that link, and they'll be able to correlate that information to what they're looking for. So if you don't want to call, certainly IC3.gov is a good another kind of avenue.
Okay. And I like the idea that if I file a report, that it's actually good for the online community because of what you just described, that agents can use that information to help them understand what's going on and then potentially take some action, or at least better know what that threat landscape looks like. That's great. Um, Now, speaking of reaching out to the bureau, are there any like common mistakes that you see when CISOs are reaching out during an emergency? What does that look like for you? Because I just want our audience to be thinking about how to avoid common stumbling.
So I would say you practice like you play, and reaching out, or the thought of reaching out to the FBI, should be in the forefront of someone's mind during a tabletop, during a discussion about, are we prepared? Um, you don't want that engagement to be during the time of a crisis that the
Hmm.
company or organization is going through, to try to make introductions and exchange business cards, because they're too busy dealing with the issue. Um, so I would say that you practice like you play. Write us into your incident response plan. Talk about when and why you'd bring the FBI in. Let us come out and give you our value proposition for what we can do in the time of a response,
Hmm.
and then also have an expectation for what we can accomplish. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I work with some of the best and brightest that come from that world, that incident response world, and are now working in the FBI. We're just not scalable to respond to a crisis in an organization and conduct a recovery effort, um, you know, in real time for the organization. Uh, what we like to refer to our response as is threat response,
Hmm.
because we are going to work from the edge of a network out into the rest of the real world. That's what we're built to do, and that's where we're most successful, where we can get some indicators that are provided by the victim, whether it's the initial attack vector or an egress that was exfiltrated, a server that we need to get in front of.
Yeah.
That's where we operate best, and we can
Okay.
be quick with it. So understanding what those are, providing that information to us, and then letting us go run with it, and provide back what we learn, or what maybe other victims have reported about that threat actor that we
Mm.
can add as some additional context to the problem at hand.
Okay. So now this may be a crude analogy, so you can tell me if it's too crude. But when you were talking just now, I was thinking, oh, okay. So if I think of your team as like people driving patrol cars around, and you might come to my residence if I file a report, and you might talk to me, but really you're going to kind of spend your time sort of on the public streets, and just keeping a lookout over them. And is this kind of sort of what you're saying?
I don't like the term lookout, because we rely on victims reporting to us as,
Okay.
as our as our evidence. We
Ah,
don't have any capability to just take in a bunch of information
okay.
and act on it. So we are going to be responsive to a victim,
Okay.
100%. There
Okay.
are times that things are reported. You might see something in the open source that we want a little bit more information, so we'll make a phone call and reach out to say, "Hey, we're available if you'd like to get us involved."
Uh-huh.
Um, which brings up another point, Kip. There are some times where we're trying to reach back out to the organization because we have information that we need to provide,
Uh-huh.
and so that also justifies that early interaction with FBI, so that we know who at the company needs to be contacted, and
Ah.
we don't end up, which has happened to me, sitting on hold for 10 minutes while I have information that can protect that organization, but no one knows who to pass the FBI off to on a phone call.
Oh,
Um,
that's insightful.
so,
I didn't even think
so
about that.
so the practice like you play really comes into perspective when you think about that. That's a bilateral or bidirectional
Mhm.
conversation and exchange of information,
Okay.
and we've really gotten behind that, and everyone at the cyber division has held to that standard to try to really get that victim up and running if we can, and then we'll work the case on the other end of things, but we want to make sure that they have every piece of information we can provide them
Mhm.
in that time of crisis.
Okay, that's great. Now this leads me to another question I want to ask you. I have a whole lot of questions I want to
Sure,
ask you. So,
sure.
okay, here's the next one. So, how does your team work alongside, say, a private incident response firm, or maybe one that's provided, through a cyber insurance policy? Like, what's that like?
Well, we try to be a team player. So oftentimes in these engagements, you'll have a coach, a breach coach that might
Mm-hmm.
be involved. Outside counsel might be kind of quarterbacking that engagement,
Mm-hmm.
and we are kind of working directly in line with what the victim is asking us to do, and then corresponding with that individual. So rarely will that kind of engagement happen at a victim site
Mm-hmm.
unless the victim is okay with us sharing across those lines of effort.
Mm-hmm.
What happens more often is that we meet each other at conferences. We know who the different individuals are in the area of responsibility that might be responding in person or remotely to a victim, and we'll share strategies and frankly intelligence based on what we know of the threats. That is a function that happens a little bit at a higher level at our headquarters with some of the folks at these companies who are in front of the threats every day, just like we are, but in a different light.
Okay. Okay. So now a related question that I have for you is, let's say there is something bad that's happening, and I've decided, I've realized I need to reach out to the task force. Um, so what should I be sharing with you, like in the first 30 minutes? Like what do you need most from me? Because I probably am overwhelmed with data and information.
Mhm.
What's going to be most helpful for you?
Uh, Things that we can action immediately, and by action I mean get in front of a provider, get a prosecutor up to speed, let them know what's going on, so that we can start to issue legal process. We also can preserve some things pretty quickly, so we want to know, that if that initial attack vector is known, we want to know that immediately, whether it came from
Hmm.
an email address, an IP address that was detected, and then where was the data exfilled to? If this was a ransomware event, oftentimes the threat actors will exfiltrate data to a server. Where is that server? Would like to know as soon as possible so that we can uh, at least understand where in the world it is,
Hmm.
and then what authorities are needed to maybe preserve it or get in front of it. So those two things are I think immediate, or the sooner the better.
Hmm.
If there's an image of a server that's been hit, or there's been, I'm assuming that there's going to be a live response done internally on those hosts. We'd love to have a copy of it down the road, or if we
Uh-huh.
have just the findings and the results of that investigation of what we refer to as just the bad guy data.
Mhm.
That's definitely is the evidence that we would collect, and you can have that conversation in the organization before you give us a call. Um, and that's kind of goes into that practice like you play, where you're saying, okay, what are we going to, in our tabletop here, what can we give to the FBI? Are we going to be able to give them this initial attack vector from the email? Can we give them the email header? And the lawyers can kind of get an understanding, and sometimes they might just sign off on, hey, if these are IP addresses we think are malicious actors, let's give them right away, and have that already is decided upon, so that when you're with that group in the conference room, you've already checked through a couple of things and you can get right down to the other problems that need to get solved.
Okay. Now, there's a question that just came in my mind as I was listening to you talk. So let's say I do have an image of a server, but let's say I'm concerned, or maybe my supervisor is concerned, like, I don't know, we've got some information on that server. If we give the image over to the FBI, I'm concerned that that might, result in some sort of a regulatory, investigation or something like that. Is that really a concern? Things like that.
It certainly is a concern. We're not a regulatory agency, and so whatever regulatory rules are in play for that victim, they need to
Hmm.
be uh, you know checked off on early, and we wouldn't have a part in that.
Okay.
Um, but what I will say is we don't need everything. And in most cases, the case agent of that variant in ransomware, we have a case team that is singular throughout the bureau for
Okay.
every variant.
Hmm.
So using Lockbit, for example, there is a Lockbit case team that would be able to tell us, hey, we've got enough images. We don't even need that So that would be just a waste of time for the victim. What we really need is, additional, the TOR or tox IDs that they're
Okay.
asking us to reach out on. So those types of decisions are kind of made as we encounter the different variants and as you're working through the problem.
I see.
We will facilitate that conversation with that case team wherever they're going to be located in the country.
Okay. So just a quick follow-up question on that. So if a regulatory agency thought, oh, we really need to see what's on that image that the FBI has, are they allowed to gain access to it in some way, like through sort of a court order or anything like that? Or is that just not really like part of the way things work?
I'm not a lawyer. I'll just preface this by saying I'm not a lawyer, but if legal process would appease victims' counsel for turning that over, and that's something important to the case, we would make that work and talk to our prosecutor to satisfy the request. You just would have to ask for it.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So one last question, because I do want to be cognizant of the time. But let me just ask you this one more question. So let's say company leaders, want to include the FBI, because earlier in our conversation you said that you all publish information, right? So if we wanted to include the intelligence that you're sharing into like a weekly operations meeting or something like that, how would we do that? How would we get plugged in?
I'm glad you're asking that question. I hope that's the case, because there are some great reports out there. Because I focus specifically on ransomware, I know that there's some of the top variants that have a formalized reporting that is published through the CISA.gov website. We call them Joint Cybersecurity Advisories, and our main vehicle for pushing that intel out is through CISA, and it's at CISA.gov to get that. That's kind of the end goal of our intelligence cadre here, is to have some formalized reporting that they're providing out, including indicators. There's different protocols that they can ingest into threat detection and intrusion detection systems that are specific to every one of those variants.
Okay.
Just looking at my notes here, I would also want to include that, as I mentioned before, we are, in addition to consuming what we're offering, we also want to hear from the community as to what they're seeing. So that back and forth is extremely important to us. And the better we can get at covering down on the biggest threats that are out there, I think the more successful we'll be and the more important we'll be to the community.
Right. Okay. So you really want a two-way conversation going.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If we can have if we can establish that partnership, that's what we want to do. And that's, as the supervisor, that's what I'm really charged with, is creating these partnerships and this trust amongst our CISOs here in New England that will speak to me and talk about the various issues that they're encountering. And if it gets enough momentum and there turns to be enough to open a criminal investigation, then we'll assign that to one of the FBI agents here, and they'll be off and running with that victim, keeping the victim as the primary and in mind as a victim, not anything else, but trying to support what they're trying to accomplish, and then hopefully getting someone back here in the States that we can hold accountable at the end of the day.
Okay, excellent. Now we're coming to the end of the time that we have available. We have a little bit of time right now. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I had asked you, or is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience?
That's a great interview question, Kev. I feel like we covered a lot. Certainly, if you have questions about anything, we want to be a resource for the CISO. That's really where the cyber task force will excel. And I'll also just say that when you hear the term task force, that should make you understand that we are working with state, local agencies. We work with other government agencies. The task force is a really an exceptional complement of cyber investigators here that I'm proud to work with and help the community with solving some of these problems that are not easy problems, and they're a lot of times the first time we're trying to accomplish in a cyber world what we're doing. So appreciate the partnership with you, Kip, and thanks for letting me come on here and speak.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Agent Domin, thank you so much for being here. Would it be okay if I put your LinkedIn profile page in the show notes? Would that be all right?
I think that would be fine. I'll just confirm after this, Kip,
Okay.
if that's okay. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, great. So wonderful. Well, guess what, everybody? This wraps up this episode of the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. Today, we learned how you can add law enforcement and specifically the FBI as a valuable resource to your cybersecurity program. And we did that with our guest, Supervisory Special Agent Douglas Domin. We'll see you next time.